Hello there, welcome to Fully Painted. This is the second video in my little series where I paint my Wood Elf Blood Bowl team. In the first video we tackled the green spandex and the freehand, and this one's gonna be a detailed tutorial on painting skin. Now with that out of the way, grab your brushes, we're going to the lab. So before we get to the tutorial, I wanted to discuss with you the technique that I'll be using when painting the skin. When painting the skin, I wanted to focus on correct light placement and painting volumes. So I came up with a technique that allowed me to do that somewhat easily. For this technique, you need three colors: a shadow, a midtone, and a highlight. Now let's use this pot as a stand-in for our miniature. First I'm going to base coat the entire miniature with my shadow color. After that I'm going to pick the angle where the light is going to hit my miniature. To make it simpler, we're going to say that the light is hitting the miniature this way. And after that, I'm going to look at my miniature as if my eyes were my light source. And so every surface that is parallel to my light rays is going to be hit with my midtone, as well as the stuff that is fully hit by the light. And the third step is going to be to grab my highlight and hit all the surfaces that are directly hit by the light. And that's basically how I'm going to try to paint the skin. Now let's get to it. And now we start applying that technique on the skin. I start with the shadow color as mentioned, but here I make a slight modification to my technique, inspired by something I saw Andy Wardle do on the Colorful Paints channel, on a tutorial he has on skin, and that is to first do a diluted coat of that shadow color. It's basically a sort of wash, so it tints the model, but we keep the undercoat, the pre-shade seeing, well, coming through, I guess. Which is the main gist of this. First initial wash, and then the idea is to do second coats of the shadow color, but this time only in the shadows, and for that having the zenithal pre-shade still showing is very helpful. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm applying the shadow color a second time, so I have an opaque layer of it. I usually do my shadow color all over the miniature before doing my midtones and highlight, but I wanted to test this out. There is another way to do this as well. I think it's Masculine Miniature who does this. He applies his shadow, midtone and highlight colors exactly in the areas that they are supposed to be. So only shadows in the shadow areas, midtones only in the midtone areas, and highlights only in the highlights areas. This requires a lot more skill than I have, so I'm not confident enough to try this technique out yet. So I'm happy to keep it my way. As you can see, I'm sloshing it all over the hand right now, even if it's not entirely in shadow. It's just because there's too much detail and various volumes here to just aim at the shadows right now. I'm more confident with layering up. And that's what I do right now with my midtone color. I follow the technique I mentioned by looking at the miniature as if my eyes were the sun, but also using the zenithal that is showing through after the initial wash layer. A bit of both, really. And so I'm careful to apply my layer, my midtone layer, only on surfaces directly hit by the sun, but also parallel to the light rays. It's very important to make sure to cover the entire surface that's deserving of your midtone, because what's important when painting light is mostly paying attention to angle changes, because that's what's going to dictate the intensity of the light. So you have to make sure to cover the entire area and just stop when the angle of the surface changes. Like you can see here on the hand, it's mostly the knuckles and the wrists and whatnot. That's where the angle of the surface changes. I somewhat cheat a bit here around the torso, just because he is leaning quite a bit forward. So I'm applying some mid-tone, potentially where there wouldn't be any, just so he's not completely invisible and hidden in shadow. Sometimes you've gotta cheat with reality, I guess, to make something more pleasant on the eye. Do not be enslaved by reality, I would say. And now this first step, which is applying a highlight. So right now I'm hitting everything that's directly hit by the light. And on faces, if you've seen my Obi-Wan video, it's mostly eyebrows and under the eyes, the cheeks and under the eyes, and the nose, of course, that are getting hit by light. Squidmar has a terrific video on painting faces. I recommend you watch it. Right now I'm following the volumes, the shape, and I keep watching, looking at the miniature as if my eyes were the sun, to make sure I'm placing my highlights correctly. I'm cheating as well a tiny bit on the back, mostly because I placed the light a bit forward, hitting the left side of his face and the left shoulder, which means if that was like a sort of spotlight on him, his back would be way more in shadow, but that would be a bit boring and weird to look at when playing on the board game, so I have to cheat a bit here. So I'm gonna highlight his back a bit more. I hit the leg as well, as you just saw there. And this part is fairly easy because I just have to follow the highlight I did on the green cloth. A lot of focus is put on the front of the miniature still, well, the higher parts of the miniature, because it's a part you're gonna directly look at. Our brain is trained to look at faces and whatnot. So yeah, here's the highlighting of the back I mentioned. I basically treat this back as if there were two suns, one in the front and a second one in the back. That is less powerful, I guess. Don't worry with transition at the moment. I place my volumes first, and once I'm satisfied with those, I do tiny glazes in between the layers, between midtones and highlights and whatnot. But I only do this for the skin, because I mentioned in the first video that I don't really care for smooth blends, but I make an exception for skin on certain models. Here I can afford to do this because I only have to paint skin on my two Wardensers. Well, the other elves only have their faces, so it's quite easier. And a lot of them have masks. And now that I've painted my three different colors for my technique, I put the value, I raise the value even higher by adding a fourth and maybe fifth highlight color on the skin. Usually when I do this technique, I vary the number of highlight I do depending on the surface I'm painting. If I'm painting a matte surface, or a surface that I really don't care about on the miniature, I tend to stop at 3 colors, so my shadow, midtone and highlight. But for some surfaces that are more shiny or satin, like skin tends to be fairly satin, then I go up to a 4th or even 5th highlight color. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. For this part though, I specifically just keep the logic I did for the previous highlight, the previous layer, the highlight. So all the surfaces that are that are perpendicular to the light rays, that is. But I just shrink the surface I'm painting. So same surface, just shrunk surface. That's the logic I'm following. And it's gonna make for a more impactful light. You're gonna see when it's fully done, the skin is gonna look a lot more shiny, just like as if he was directly in the sun. Which, in my view, looks terrific. For this 4th color though, I don't really hit the back. I focus mostly on the face and the shoulder area, as well as the knee. The knee is fairly prominent here. Once that's done, I start putting some red on the skin to make it more alive. That's something I advise you do, regardless of the blood, I guess, of your miniature. If you've seen my Seraphon videos, I do it with blue because I figure they've got blue blood, but I target elbows, knees, hands and whatnot. And for the face here, ears, as you saw earlier, and right now, are usually quite red. And then on the underside of the cheeks, so I don't touch the highlights. And right now I hit the mouth as well. But yeah, that's how I do. I bring the skin to life. Let's just say. I could put even more in other spots, but yeah, like the eyes I do here. But I'm probably gonna stop there. Yeah, that's good. That's looking good. And now I'm doing a 5th and final highlight for the skin, but that I focus it mostly on the face. And mostly on the left side, because that's the one being hit by the sun the most. Now it's time for the eyes, which I hit with an off-white color. For doing the pupil in a non-black color, I wanted to try something out. They are wood elves, so let's give them green eyes. That's the look. Don't forget the nipples, they're quite important. And now onto the hair. I follow the same logic of painting my volumes for my hair, because I think it's going to make it look way more realistic. So I start with my shadow color as well, following a very similar technique. And then we paint the mid-tone. Same idea here, I paint every surface or every shape or volume of the hair that is perpendicular as well as parallel to the light rays, because that's going to read as the main color of my hair. The mid-tone that is. Now I start highlighting, but still I only paint volumes. I'm not doing even individual hair right now. I'm doing the top of the head and some bits that are floating about. I'm focusing on places that are perpendicular to the light rays right now. And now only then, for my 4th highlight, and final highlight I should say, do I focus on painting individual hair. And as you can see, it's only on a very small surface, a part of the previous highlight areas. I'm emulating the sort of halo you'll see on hair when it's shiny and healthy. And yes, I'm basically trying to get to copy and use as a reference what you see on shampoo ads. You can Google hair for shampoo ads and whatnot. Here, don't forget the eyebrows, of course. But yeah, that's what I'm aiming for, that halo of shiny hair. Let's do it again for the brown hair. I did 4 colors of hair throughout this entire team. Brown, blonde, red head, and a black. But yeah, that's all throughout the colors is the exact same logic. So my initial layer of shadow color, followed by my midtone. Here that covers everything that's somewhat parallel to the light rays. Before I do my highlight color, but the highlight is not completely the same as the ones I did for the skin, because hair, as I mentioned, is a much more shiny surface, so it behaves differently. It behaves almost like metal and how you would paint NMM basically. I try to focus the highlights on the curves, the angle changes of my curves. So if a curve is convex or concave, the angle where it's changing angle the most, the spot where it's changing angle the most, is where I'm going to put my highlights. As you can see here, I'm trying to hit the inside or outside of the curves, the starts of curves for my highlight color. Before I do my final and fourth step of individual hair placement, and this is how I get a shiny hair effect. Yeah, I really recommend you look up hair photos for this, for getting references. You should always get references when you're trying to paint something to a good level, of course, but yeah, that's what I'm doing here. And that's it. That's the skin and the faces and the hair for now. That's how they look. So you can see my wood elf, my wood dancer, or war dancer, sorry, got a very nice skin in full light effects going on that I'm really proud about. You can see how the fur looks here. I put a lot of red in her cheeks, trying to sort of emulate some makeup. I should really get around to watching makeup tutorials to do better with that later on, but that was pretty okay for now. And that's my war dancer. That's probably my favorite and best skin I've painted so far. I pushed this one to quite high level, and I got placements with it in a few painting competitions. I'm really proud of him. I really like how striking the skin look and how hard the light is on this, and that's why I want to paint light that way on miniatures from now on, because I think it looks really good, and I think you should give it a try. It's very hard to paint light correctly, but as you can, hopefully you can see, and hopefully you agree as well, it looks really good. So give it a go. But that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a like. And if you have any question, feel free to drop them in the comments down below. The third video is going to be a detailed tutorial on painting NMM. So if you don't want to miss it, please consider subscribing. But that's it from me. So until then, I hope you stay adventurous and that you keep painting, because painting is cool.